Lydia Hislop Road to Cheltenham, Part 3 including Buverde and #X27 Air. It and #X27 S Part 3 of the Road to Cheltenham and Buverde and #X27 Air and #X27 S fighting fifth victory is just one of the performances to go under the microscope. This was a good week for Nicky Henderson, with his reigning champion hurdler making an utterly convincing comeback, his big noise novice chaser an almost foot-perfect debut and one of his novice hurdlers demonstrating a great deal of raw talent. You couldn't say it was a bad week for Gordon Elliott, but, after a certain significant reversal, let's just say the choir of true believers has fewer members than this time last week. United champion hurdle so comprehensively did Buverde brush aside the sainted Sam Crow in last Saturday's fighting fifth that trainer Nicky Henderson was emboldened to make comparisons between the winner's technique and that of the most recent dribble champion hurdlers. There and #X27 S one similarity between CU then, is Tobrick and this horse, and that's how quickly they cross a hurdle. That and #X27 S why they and #X27 re so good. Apart from that last hurdle, in the fighting fifth, he is just so slick and quick, he observed. And Henderson should know, he has trained two of the three horses cited. That final obstacle at Newcastle, which Buverde walked through, was indeed the only visual scar to an otherwise flawless performance. It probably should be interpreted as better than anything we saw from him last season, including his second champion hurdle triumph. In the afterglow here, Henderson added ballast to this interpretation when explaining that he couldn't get Buverde right after his neck defeat of Mellon last March at Cheltenham. He therefore opted to miss Aintree, where his horse had won the 2M4F Grade 1 the previous season. An unsatisfactory trachea wash was the official reason given at the time, and lukewarm mentions of Punchestown proved no more than that. Since then, the horse has undergone surgery to correct his breathing. Whatever the nuts and bolts, Willie Mullins should surely work on the premise that his 2018 champion hurdle runner-up actually has rather more than a neck to find. Some analysts have even argued that Buverde's latest success is a career high, and I can't entirely dismiss this, albeit the race was a steadily run small field affair in which at least one key rival was clearly below his best, and the true strength of the winner's net opposition, bar the unfortunate Blue at Rouge, was not yet a known. What I mean is that Sam Crow's official rating was based on, dotting up in a Ballymore depleted by his presence, not completing in the Punchestown champion hurdle and being beaten by a horse, Bedrock, a non-runner at Newcastle due to a swollen hock, deemed to have suddenly run 10 pounds above himself. Last Saturday, Sam Crow looked cumbersome at his obstacles against a driven-out winner over whom he held a race fitness advantage. Even if I don't buy the idea that Henderson brought Buverde to this important encounter in any way half-baked, he'd have been fit enough, all right. Your eyes alone told you that. In short, I do not know what Sam Crow is. There are some things he's not. He's not a champion hurdle winner as long as he retains that airy technique. Yet it also seems connections have decided he won't step up in trip for the stairs hurdle. Neither is he a 2019 Arkle or JLT contender, nor, presumably, the 2020 Gold Cup hero in waiting. Instead, he's seemingly going to take a rain check until next season unless he can somehow, for reasons not yet apparent to any observer, turn this form around. A couple of Grade 1 hurdling targets in Ireland have been mentioned, to occupy his attention the meantime. Elliott suggested prior to Saturday that Newcastle might be a little on the sharp side for Sam Crow, even though it's more galloping than the constantly turning Old Course, venue of the champion hurdle, and Ballymore. Perhaps it was the 3 quick hurdles in Newcastle straight he was thinking of when making this remark? While we're scratching around for further mitigation, Sam Crow also didn't look entirely happy making his own running. He'd surely be better taking a lead in a well-run race such as a champion hurdle. But Elliott summed it up when he said, "There is no making excuses. I thought if we were ever going to beat him it might be then, because we had a run under our belt and he was making his reappearance. So, for the life of me, I can't work out why the Second Coming is having a second season over hurdles now. We've all witnessed him being comprehensively outjumped and outpaced by Buverdere. The life of Sam Crow has turned more Brian, as he haplessly trails round the Messiah's path. "Oh, geez, he's a chaser," Gigginstown's Eddie O'Leary had said, amid the post-Ballymore scenes. "They're all chasers. If it's hurdles, with us, it's on the way." Yet the wayside clock is ticking for Sam Crow. At this rate, not to be too old-style Daily Mail about it, he'll be 8 years of age if contesting novice chases at next season's festival and 9 in the 2021 Gold Cup. Will they regret leaving it too late? Sure, Don Cossack, Imperial Commander and Koff Synchronized, managed to win Gold Cups at the first attempt at the age of 9 in recent years, but by modern standards, that's at least a season later than La Mode. Perhaps tellingly, all three were also in their third, not their second, season of chasing at the time. So, I say again, what the chuff does it mean, this intransigence? Is there something they're not telling us? Has Sam Crow even, Hail Mary, may I repent the ungodly thought, schooled poorly over fences? Because otherwise it's totally baffling, whatever Arkle Gauntlet stablemate Menglicon threw down last week. That Sam Crow would exit, pursuing the Arkle, post-Newcastle formed part of my logic in backing Somerville Boy for the champion hurdle at 12-1 last week. I also wanted to see flashes of a more mature article from that horse himself with next March in mind. Instead, I've ended up with neither, and he's now a best-priced 21. However, it may only be the battle I've lost rather than the war. I still think there's a good chance that, come the festival, or perhaps even earlier, it will look a decent bet given he clearly did not run his race at Newcastle, and there are sound arguments against 4 of the 7 horses quoted at shorter, 5, if you include Sam Crow. And I do. Better not to run your race at all than to run it and be soundly beaten. Bookmakers have overreacted. I won't have it that Somerville Boy can't jump on the basis of one race. He jumped cleanly bar the final flight in last term's Supreme, when playing catch-up as a result of being hampered at the second last. Yet he never found a rhythm at Newcastle, looking profoundly rusty, and ran as underwhelmingly as his lack of market confidence presaged. It all shouted him needing the run. Admittedly, it would have been more encouraging had trainer Tom George suggested he wasn't expecting much first time out, but that didn't seem to be the case. Instead, he has backfitted last season's then disheartening hurdling debut from the horse to explain away the disappointment. Somerville Boy found, the fighting fifth, a bit too much against 2 good horses, George said on Saturday. He was beaten at Stratford first time out last year, too. Maybe that and #X27's just him. This horse's next race will be crucial to his development. He clearly needs a strongly run race to function at his best, and is far more likely to get that in something like Ascot's Grade 3 Handicap Hurdle later this month or Newbury's Betfair Hurdle in February than in Cheltenham's International Hurdle next week or Kempton's Christmas Hurdle. However, George repeatedly turned down opportunities to run second-season hurdler and abortive stairs aspirant, the World's End, from a favorable handicap mark last season, so I'm not holding out much hope. Let's at least trust it's the Cheltenham Grade 2 next rather than Kempton's Grade 1, the latter being totally and utterly unsuitable as opposed to just non-ideal. Meanwhile, we can clearly expect Henderson to map out a reliably identical campaign from here for Buverdere, comprising the Christmas Hurdle and Sandown's Contenders Hurdle, which this horse has won the last twice, in February. It and #X27 something that does and #X27 get done very often, his trainer said, referring to the chance of winning 3 champion hurdles on the bounce. They don and #X27 go on forever, these horses, and keeping them in one piece is all that really matters. That's our job between now and then. If Gigginstown did champion hurdlers, Apple's Jade would probably be the best, in their world. However, Elliot's strong steer after she brought up a hat trick in the Grade 1 Haddon's Grace last Sunday is that she will return to the OLBG Mares Hurdle for a 3rd successive year. I'm a big believer in going for the race you have the best chance of winning, and at Cheltenham that is the mare's hurdle, he asserted, deadening the spirits of sports fans everywhere. The mare's latest success is therefore predominantly dealt with in that section, albeit she is talented enough to feature in all three of my championship hurdle ruminations. Highly though I rate her ability and deadly though she would be in most races with the 7 pounds mare's allowance, I happen to think Beauverdere would beat Apple's Jade in a champion hurdle anyway, on 2 counts. First, she's not as rapid as him at 2 miles. Second, 3 years festival evidence suggests Cheltenham does not bring out the best in her, even if footnotes contain excuses for 2 of those efforts: 2016 triumph, returning from setback, 2018 mare's hurdle, in season. Even when she won in 2017, she delivered more high-achieving performances at Punchestown on either side of that outing and also at Fairyhouse earlier that season. As mentioned last week, Jessica Harrington could well direct Super Sunday, whose latest defeat by Apple's Jade at Fairyhouse was exaggerated by his rider's disinterested tactics, perhaps in anticipation of a characteristically rusty return to action towards the champion hurdle this term. She stated in her At the Races stable tour, "We are very much keeping our options open with him, and he could end up anywhere from 2 miles to 2.5 miles to 3 miles. However, there was ultimately a lot less to boast about in his last term defeat of Foyne, and I suspect Super Sunday simply isn't good enough." The noises-off role of Yorkhill could be played by minutes this season, at least in the minds of those who are already discussing targets ranging from the champion chase to the Gold Cup, Ryanair to the champion hurdle on Connection's behalf. Yet Willie Mullins has stated the horse is likely to go down a similar route to what he did last season, which makes this target seem unlikely, at least at this stage. So that's Sam Crow, Apple's Jade, Super Sunday and Minutes, all of whom are currently shorter in the champion hurdle market than Somerville Boy and stand far less chance, for various reasons, of playing a leading role. Farkless, who may have led home an inferior bunch of juveniles in last term's triumph, was never involved behind Apple's Jade and might either range up in trip or, handicap her permitting, down in grade. Wicklow Brave was the only rival truly to roll up his sleeves against the brilliant mare last Sunday, but ultimately looked a shadow of his former self. That leaves his stablemates, Mellon and the mare Lorena, both of whom are yet to race this season, as the most credible threats to Beauverdere. 8-1 about the former appeals far more than 5-1 about the latter, given Mellon will definitely run here bar mishaps, yet Lorena has the ever-present softer option of the mare's hurdle. The Cistercian order has been remarkably plain speaking about a more ambitious target, however. In his At the Races stable tour, Mullins stated, "I think we'll train her and campaign her with a view to the champion hurdle. She'll need to improve to get to that level, but she'll have the mare's allowance in her favor, and it wouldn't surprise me if she did. Backing her prior to non-runner no-bet terms would be an act of high-wire bravery, however, because one false move once she reappears on the track could see such protestations of valor morph into discretion come March." Carrying top weight, Global Citizen had to win the Jerry Fielden, or Newberry's Ledbrooks intermediate hurdle, if his Grade 1 pretensions were to be considered in any way realistic. After setting about dismantling his opposition in characteristically enthusiastic style from the front, he clung on courageously from improving Lisp, who can land a decent handicap prize soon, and Montana de Avaloyers. 2012 champion hurdle winner Rock on Ruby sets the happiest recent precedent, having won this race from a mark 1 pound lower, albeit more decisively, prior to finishing a close second to Binocular in the Christmas hurdle and winning at Cheltenham 3 months later. Global Citizen will be following the same path, initially at the very least. Campton will suit this horse better than Cheltenham, given his open book run style is both his weapon and his weakness. A better jump at the last would have sealed the deal more decisively at Newbury, and it's worth noting subsequent comments from trainer Ben Pauling suggesting reasons to expect improvement. "We missed a week about a week ago with a bang on Global Citizen's joint," he reported. "We worked him in the week and he worked okay, but not with his normal zest, so that was fantastic. Sunbet Stayers hurdle if you can't say anything nice, Don't say anything at all. If I stuck to this advice with regard to analyzing a performance worthy of this Cheltenham target during the past week, there wouldn't be much to read here. Yes, it was genuinely delightful to see a now 8-time Hari winning a second long-distance hurdle at the age of 10, but, as partner Barry Garrity immediately acknowledged, it's hard to imagine he's the force he was when first winning that Grade 2 event 2 years ago. He clearly needs all of 3 miles these days, and the first-time cheek pieces were not merely a fashion accessory, as he still hit a few now customary flat spots before coming home powerfully from after the second last on Friday. The weights were also in his favor, free as he was of the penalty he had to carry in last year's edition. Trainer Harry Fry has no expectation of winning a